Over 1 billion people around the world live in poverty. Human beings created in the image of God. As Christians, we're called to help, but sometimes our help can make things worse. We wanted to learn more, so we hit the road. We traveled to crowded cities and rural villages. We visited churches and orphanages and businesses, and met people from all walks of life to listen and to learn. We asked, what has worked? What has failed and why? What's new and effective? And what are the forgotten truths in need of rediscovery? We asked, what are the foundations that allow human beings, families, and communities to thrive?
So would you welcome Andrew? Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're the Strategy and Engagement Manager at Acton Institute and PovertyCure. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got there and what you do.
Yeah, so the Acton Institute is a research and education foundation up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we're a little bit unique in that we focus on the intersection between economics and government, and then what the moral and religious foundation for those are. And one of our big passions is poverty and how to address poverty in a way that is sustainable and transformational. So I'd always been interested in economics and how that impacted poverty and how we think about poverty. So that's how I got connected to PovertyCure, which is an initiative of the Acton Institute. Big reason why I'm here is to just really learn from you all. You guys are the tip of the spear as far as true models for how to address poverty in a way that is helpful and not harmful. I travel throughout the country doing screenings of PovertyCure, which you saw a part of, and also another film which you may have heard of called Poverty, Inc. That's a product of the Acton Institute as well. And a lot of churches, a lot of organizations are really looking for some sustainable methods, and I'm just here to learn from you all.
All right, and so are you hearing more from churches today? How are they responding to the Poverty Inc. video, the PovertyCure DVDs? What's the response?
There's a couple of responses, a couple of trends that I've noticed. One trend is that and you probably all know this, there are a lot of churches, a lot of church members who still haven't realized the toxic charity that is a reality, or that helping can hurt. And so they're very taken aback sometimes by the film and makes them really ponder and think. But simultaneously, there are a lot of people who get that message. They're like you here, who they understand the toxic charity problem and they want to move beyond that, and they're really hungry for models that work. So for example, I was in Spokane, Washington, and we were doing a PovertyCure screening, and they were just mentioning to us that we kind of get this, we just really need models that work. So any way you can connect us with those models, please do so. So there's a big hunger out there.
So, and I think Jonathan mentioned this, so one of the things that we're realizing that works is that early on, if you can just find those individuals within your church to which this intuitively makes sense, you just want to feed that with some good content. So when we talk about giving out toxic charity, or when helping hurts like candy, that begins to have an impact. That begins to have a little gentle infection, if you will, within your church, finding the people. And then these DVDs, we're finding and say, do a small group with this, because the stories here and the narrative that you hear in these videos here make people go, yeah, that's what I've been thinking. It's a little bit like your book, Bob. People would read it and go, what he said. And once we can begin to articulate something, you can start to coalesce a group of people that are speaking a similar language. And then as you speak a similar language, you can begin to imagine, okay, if not this, then what? And that's the kind of beginning stages. Would you agree?
I would, yeah. I mean, just to illustrate that point, there was a man named Chris in Missouri who called me up. He wanted to do a PovertyCure screening at his church because his church had just done a clothes giveaway to the neighborhood, and he just said, this just doesn't sit right. This just doesn't make sense. And so he really wanted to bring in PovertyCure and try to implement that into his church to provide that vernacular to people to kind of open their eyes. Because you're exactly right. I think a lot of people, there are these individuals in a lot of churches who, there's something that's not quite right. They don't feel right about it, but they don't know how to articulate it. And so with PovertyCure, for example, a lot of people have told us, we knew something wasn't right, but once we saw your video, that really opened our eyes, and that enabled us to have a language to explain what we was feeling was wrong, and our fears and concerns were confirmed in your video, and now we can really articulate what we think is wrong and how we can go about changing it. So. Okay,
and any ideas on how to help the church move forward from the videos?
From the videos, well, that's what I'm here to learn, basically. So I think a lot of your organizations, and you've done the work, you're doing the hard work of kind of figuring that out. And so I think once you have that foundation of knowledge and language to give people to articulate the problem that they're thinking about, then that's when they're open to the models that you guys are talking about here.
So, and this is just my little secret, not putting you on the spot here, but a lot of the stories in these DVDs are international, and I would love somewhere down the road to maybe partner with you guys and do something more U.S. based and some stories, because I think the church is dying for this kind of story about folks that are doing the kind of stuff you're doing, Desiree, and what James Whitford is doing down in Joplin, Missouri. There are some U.S.-based stories. Jonathan referred to Randy White out of Fresno and his Spark, not Shark, Spark tank. And you want to know more about that, ask me. It is the coolest little social venture capital for low to moderate income families. And they've got a 69% success rate in helping to launch small little businesses with a relatively small amount of venture capital for these kinds of things. But I digress. But those would be some great stories, don't you think?
Oh yes, we get requests for a domestic version of PovertyCure all the time. So, and Poverty Inc. as well. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, you can send your email request to Andrew Vanderput at Acton, and we'll see what we can do. So we're glad to have you here. Would you say thank you to Andrew here?
So.
Thank you.